talk about a lie real quick because I know that you've heard you need to be on every platform. You need to post everywhere, that you can repurpose your content 10 different ways. Technically, yeah, you can. I've been guilty of it. Just because you post everywhere doesn't mean you should. What most people are calling repurposing right now is literally just copy and paste marketing. And that's exactly why your content isn't hitting. Let me set the scene.
Set the scene!
You make one video, you chop it into clips, you throw it on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, LinkedIn, same caption, same message, same energy, and then you sit there like, why isn't this working? Well, I'm going to tell you why. Because platforms are different. But more importantly, people are different depending on where they are. I know from personal experience the version of me scrolling on TikTok at 2 a.m. is not the same person reading LinkedIn at 9 a.m. And yet we all talk to them the exact same way. And don't get me wrong, like I said, I'm guilty of this too, but I've come to realize, and I don't think marketers are saying this loud enough for everyone, is that repurposing isn't just copy and pasting your content everywhere. It's not taking one video, slapping it on 5 platforms, changing nothing, and calling it a strategy. That's not repurposing, that's just duplication. Real repurposing is more like a translation. It's looking at one message and asking, okay, how does this need to sound here? Because the way someone receives the content on Instagram is not the same way they receive the content on YouTube. And so you need to not just push out content, you need to shape it. You're taking the same idea and letting it show up differently depending on where you're going and who it's reaching. Because at the end of the day, content isn't just about what you're saying, it's of whether or not someone actually receives it. And this is where I started to use the kingdom content to really shift everything. Because when you start building your content around those 4 pillars I talked about earlier, I will link it somewhere in or around this video so that you can go deeper into it. But you stop creating random posts and you start creating actual source material. It's real, rooted content, the kind of content that actually has something in it, not just something to say, but something to pull from. Because now instead of sitting there thinking, I need something to post today, you're going to go back to something that you already created and ask, what is inside this that I can utilize? Where's the story? Where's the lesson? Where's the real raw moment? Where's the impact? And from just that one piece, you can build out an entire ecosystem of content that actually makes sense. Now, to break this into a real life scenario, because I think that this is where people get stuck the most, let's just say you sit down and record one solid YouTube video. Not fluff, not trend bait, not something you made just to keep the algorithm from throwing a hissy fit. I'm talking about a real video, a video where you actually say something, you taught something, you shared something that mattered. And then you take that video, that's your teaching. So that's your anchor point, your baseline, okay? And then that's gonna funnel and spread out. Think of it as a pyramid. The mistake I see people make the most is thinking that the job's done once the video is posted. No, that's actually where the work starts. And sidebar, this is going to be work. This is going to be something that's going to be deeper, but it's worth it. I promise you. Because the video is going to have layers. It's like an onion. It's like an ogre.
Onions have layers. Ogres have layers. Onions have layers? You get it. We both have layers.
You probably shared in there a personal story or a client story or a piece of your own journey that hits to the point. And that piece right there, that's not just part of the video, that's the testimony. So another offshoot. And that could be an Instagram reel. That could become a post. That could make someone stop scrolling because now you're just not hearing information, but they're seeing proof. They're seeing humanity. They're seeing what it looks like in real life. Then maybe somewhere in that same video, you said one line that just landed. It was like a mic drop moment. And one of those lines comes to you and you pause and you're like, okay, that's the one, that's the line. That becomes your carousel. That becomes a quote graphic. That becomes the thing that people save because you put it in a language that is something that they're feeling that they didn't know how to say. Then maybe there's like a one part of the video where you explained an idea in a way that was very clear. Not the whole video, just one strong takeaway. And that became a LinkedIn post or a blog, because LinkedIn doesn't always need a full personality of 100. Sometimes it just needs your perspective, clearly written, with enough depth to make someone think, okay, this person actually knows what they're talking about. They actually get it. And then maybe you pull the audio from the same YouTube video and you turn it into a podcast episode, because not everybody wants to sit and watch you on camera. I don't know why, but they don't. They want to listen to you while they're driving, while they're cleaning, while they're on the walk trying to figure out their life. But I think you get the picture. It's the same message, just different moments, different context, different kinds of connections. And then you got behind the scenes. What about that? You can add that in as well. The setup, the retakes, the moments where your camera dies, where your lighting's weird, where you forgot your dog was there so they start barking, or, where you forget what you say halfway and you have to start all over. That's the transparency. And honestly, that's the kind of content that reminds people that there's a human behind this brand. And then after all that, you get to show the results. What changed because of the message? How did it help someone? What shifted for a client, a customer, a follower, or even you? That's the transformation. And this is the part where I really want people to understand. You are not just taking one video and copy pasting it all over the internet like a desperate little content machine. Sorry to call you a desperate little content machine, but sometimes we are. But you need to look at that one message and say, what truths are inside this? What stories are inside this? What impact is inside this? And then you're giving each piece room to breathe in the format it makes the most sense. That's why I say you're not copying your content, you're multiplying your message. Because when your content actually has substance, it can stretch, it can deepen, it can travel. And not because it's forced to be everywhere, but because it had enough in it to meet people in a different place. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again and again and again. Most people don't have a content problem. They have a depth problem. We have lived too long in the shallows, and we need to go deeper. So I know that I've kind of broken it down a little bit, but I really don't want you just sitting here nodding your head thinking that you understand. So I'm going to give you some real life scenarios, and I'm honestly going to be doing this with this video right here. So if you go across to all my other platforms, you'll be able to see how I take this video and turn it into all of these things. So let's start with TikTok/Reels, okay? They're emotional. They've got a hook. They're fast, punchy, relatable. This is where you grab the attention immediately. So instead of taking your full video and dumping it on TikTok, you take the most emotional scroll stopping pieces. Say you're a loan officer. I know I use loan officers often. They're one of my biggest clients. So, real estate. What are you going to do? Loan officer might say, most self-employed people think they can't buy a house, but that's not actually true. It's quick, it hits, it makes someone feel something or question something, and that's what you're trying to do on those kind of platforms. On Instagram, however, it's more visual storytelling. You've got carousels, identity, your brand feel. Instagram is where your message gets to breathe visually, so instead of just saying the idea, you build it out in a way people can see and save. So same message, but in a carousel format, because carousels are having their heyday yet again. They are back, baby.
We are back, baby. We are back. We are back. Classic. We are back. That's we are back.
So carousel 1 might say you don't need to be on every platform. And then you swipe and the next photo says you need to be intentional on the ones you choose. Slide again and it says copy and paste content isn't strategy. Slide again and it says it's noise. Slide again and it says here's what to do instead. That's going to bring people in because now it's something that people can save, share, and come back to. Again, it's not just pretty content, it is reference material. LinkedIn is becoming cool. I just want to let you guys know, get on it now so you can be there before everybody else floods it and you can be established. This is where you slow down. You're not going to have quick hits. You're not going to have hooks. You're going to literally be able to talk about what you know. And this is the truth. The different platforms require different conversations, and when we ignore it, we lose connections. So make sure that when you're posting on LinkedIn, you're doing a blog or you're doing a longer, more post. Remember back in the day when we actually used to write on Facebook and like MySpace? It's kind of like that, but more professional. You'll be the authority. But another way you can do authority is going to be on YouTube. That's your teaching platform. That's your long form mecca. This is where everything starts, the top of your pyramid. And you're actually going to go through everything. You're going to explain why posting everywhere doesn't work, what repurposing actually means, how to structure your content. This is where people don't just like you, they trust you because you're not just giving a take. You're giving an understanding. And this can all then go into a podcast format. Yes, you could take this exact audio and extract it and put it in podcast, but you could also go deeper and just have a conversation. Make it more intimate. Make it feel like you're sitting next to them having a conversation, and take the message and say, okay, let's talk about this for a second. And this is where your audience goes from, oh yeah, I follow her, to, oh yeah, no, I know her.
I know you. You know you. And I know you know that I know you.
And that's really important to have that connection. So yeah, so those are the different ways that you can do it. And like I said, you didn't change the message, you just changed the delivery. And that's what makes people feel like your content is everywhere without feeling like you have to be everywhere. So if you know anything about me or my kingdom content, obviously this is rooted deep into faith. And so I like to take it a step deeper because I always want to make sure that I'm representing God. And because Colossians 3:23 says, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart. So that means you don't do it halfway. You're not copy and pasting, not good enough for every platform, but you need to do it with intention, with purpose, and with care. Because what you're creating isn't just content. It's influence. Or you're probably like, okay, cool, Brittany, you walked through all the steps, you did everything, but what do I actually do? How do I actually start? Well, like we said, it's a pyramid. So start with a strong piece per week. And then you ask, what part of this was the testimony? What part of this was the teaching? What part of this is the transparency? And what part of this is the transformation? And then you build from there. It's not outward, it's deeper inward. Because when you stop chasing the platforms and you start focusing on the people behind those platforms, everything changes. And if you really want more content like this, the strategies, the storytelling, the details, how to build your brand without selling your soul, make sure you subscribe, and I will see you on the next one.